It.
It says we're live.
Huh?
It says we're live.
Okay.
One sec.
No intro?
1 second.
What's up, everyone? Catholic Champion, your host, Johnny Epp, my co-host, Michael Hichborn. You may have seen there are some riots going on all around the country, specifically LA. Who's behind that? And newsflash, Catholics know exactly who this enemy is, and we've had a long-standing war, and we are prepped for this one. We're going to show you the receipts as well as talk about some other things going on across the country. Stay tuned. Welcome to all our first-time listeners joining our show. This is the Catholic Champion Show, where we highlight some of the heroes, first and foremost, who are fighting for our Catholic faith in the public square. This is a time more than ever where we need the voice of our Catholic faith through our theology and our philosophy and all the formation that we have been passed down to us, although from the scriptures, the church fathers, the holy fathers, et cetera, et cetera. The world needs our voice. We got to speak up, and that's what we're going to be doing, analyzing this very important situation going on. We've all seen it. Michael Hichborn, how are you doing today?
Well, I'm safely away from the fires in LA.
Maybe there's a reason you live out in the middle of nowhere, which I kind of envy, right there in Virginia, right? That's a great place to be because, yeah, you're away from it to a degree, but it seems to be spreading.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's not just spreading. It's been planned for a while, and it's all over the place. If you just look at the map on the nokings.org website, it's everywhere. This has been planned for a long time, and what we're going to see today is just how pervasive this problem is going to be.
Just in case you sleep, you live underneath, I don't know, you live in the woods, you don't have any connection to the news, and you're just here for the first time, or maybe you got off an 8-day silent retreat, Ignatian retreat with no access to phones, and you're just stepping back. What's going on? June 6th, Los Angeles, California, one of the largest cities in the nation. They really broke out in serious riots. This was, of course, in theory, triggered by what President Trump had been promising to do for a very long time. He was elected with this mandate. Remember, newsflash, he won all 7 swing states. He won the popular vote. He was very clear. He said, Tom Homan is going to be my guy. He's going to be in charge of the deportations of these illegal criminals who have come to our country under President Otto Penn Biden, right? So sure enough, we've begun these, extractions of some of these dangerous individuals. And again, I think, somebody who's very wise in this whole thing actually said to me yesterday, look, I think the Trump administration can do a much better job actually communicating a little bit who are some of these people that they're bringing out, because they're bad hombres, right? They've hurt our most vulnerable. I think a former Marine security guard was killed in Texas, or was fighting for his life, shot by an illegal migrant who was coming into like a restaurant area, and his job was to protect it. And he stood in the gap, saw the guy had the gun, tried to wrestle it from him. He was shot through the neck, and he's struggling for his life. But there's a lot of these stories, and President Trump is trying to do what the American people elected him to do, was to make our community safe. So you fast forward, you got Los Angeles. They're going in there. Yes, it's the belly of the beast. A lot of those, yes, people, I think the stats are, Michael, 1 in 4 people in California have actually not even been born in the United States. So that's huge, right? I don't think we've ever had that in a state before. That many people who, weren't born there, right? So
Well, at this point, we can call it foreign occupied territory. And I want people to look at the images that we're seeing here, all of the violence, the massive takeovers of the streets where cars are not able to get through. In many cases, these people are blockading highways. They're stopping highways from getting through. We've heard stories about ambulances not able to get to emergency sites. And what we're talking about is a country and a people and a territory held hostage. These protests are not, I mean, what do you expect to accomplish with a protest like this? They want to be heard. They want to be seen. So, okay, fine. You've made your point. But what they're not telling us and what they're not covering in the news is the fact that these people are inciting violence. They're inciting a slowdown of the economy. They're burning vehicles. They're conducting operations that are not only vandalist, so they're vandalizing vehicles here. They're looting stores. So what's the message that they're sending to the American people? It's give us what we want, or we will destroy this country by burning it down and taking your stuff. That's the message. So we are a people held hostage. This is not a situation where we can say it's just a protest. They're just trying to be seen and heard. No, they are holding this country hostage, and they need to be treated as enemy combatants.
Precisely. I mean, the numbers, I saw 2,000 people were on the 101. It's the main artery in Los Angeles, blocking that a couple days ago. 6,000 at times actually showing up in the streets. These pay attention to some of the paraphernalia that these organic protest people are having. It's obvious. Some of these signs, I was looking at some things online. They're made to look like cardboard, but they're actually like plexiglass or plywood, and they have handles on them which are screwed in. These are well orchestrated. We're going to get into this. Who's behind this? Who's behind these riots? But again, they're spreading all over. Okay.
Incidentally, I want to stop you right there because we just saw in the footage here, if you back it up just a little bit on the vandalized window, they've got these circles with an A right through the circle. That is the symbol of anarchy. It is the official anarchist symbol. So what we're looking at here are not peaceful protesters. These are anarchists looking to bring down the government. And we have to treat them as such.
They're waving the Mexican flag. You've seen that all over, not even American flag. They're burning American flags. As President Trump said rightfully at Fort Bragg yesterday, he said, maybe, it's time we change where if you burn an American flag, you get some prison time for that. That's utter disrespect for our country. It's not right. Okay. So they're doing that, and what just, I think, this, of course, is even, there's definitely money, there's definitely power behind this. Okay. I've done organized rallies before. Like, in fact, we did one in LA, of course, a couple of years ago, Dodger Stadium. It takes a lot of planning relatively to be able to pull it off. Right. So we had 5,000 people that showed up on a Friday afternoon. It took about 2 weeks for us to do that. Right. So there was obviously money and organization behind it that put on the Dodger protest. But this is way different, in the same way that this is an orchestrated attack. And did you see, Michael, the individual, and thank God the Department of Justice under Pam Bondi got right on it this time. There was an individual, 30-year-old kid on social media who was posting, he was taking tip lines, and anyone who saw an ICE agent, they would send it to him. And then he would track down the name of that person, sometimes posting the addresses of the individual agents. Okay.
Which is doxing. And
he was doxing them.
Is illegal. Yeah.
Yeah. And, and the Department of Justice is investigating now. That's great. Okay. So this is, you see literally these guys throwing rocks at our police officers. Okay. And
let's remind people here, throwing rocks is not just a mere act of vandalism or an act of defiance. It's attempted murder. You hit somebody in the head with a brick, you will kill them, or you'll seriously maim them. You hit somebody in the head with a heavy rock, you will either kill or maim them. it should be treated as assault and attempted murder. These people belong behind bars.
These LA police officers too, up until Trump really got involved, because there's a lot of different lies being said out there. Oh, it's the National Guard that caused the problem because Trump deployed that. That's why everyone's overreacting. Absolutely not true. Again, a lot of these lies come from Karen Bass, mayor of Los Angeles, we'll talk about in a second, and Governor Gavin Newsom, who really is a liar. In fact, he got called out yesterday because he said, Trump never called me, never called me.
Oh.
Trump, whatever, like an hour later, just posts the call log on his Apple iPhone to the media. It says, look, called them, 16-minute conversation, done, right? So, you know, they're making the point, Trump's people, National Guard, they caused this or wasn't. No, not true. Absolutely not true. Okay. Imagine if you were an LA police officer. My heart goes out for these people, these individuals, these men and women protecting that community. You know, Michael, you and I know our good friend Jesse Romero, ex-LA cops, many years there. And, you know, they are under a serious crunch because they wanted to do the arrest. They were not allowed to do the arrest in the first couple of days of the riot. They were told they were held back by Karen Bass, probably some members of the upper, you know, in the police department itself, to stop them from doing their job. Okay. They were just exposed. They could do very little until Trump empowered them to begin doing the work of justice that they were, you know, signed up to do.
Yeah, absolutely. On top of that, we have to remember, if you're a public official and you have a assigned duty, a particular duty to uphold the law, to maintain the peace, and you fail in that performance of duty, you have to be removed from office. The American people down there in California need to do their due diligence to make sure that people like Mayor Bass and the rest of the individuals that are in charge, that are refusing to allow the police to do their jobs to protect the citizens of their area, they must be removed from office. There's either got to be a referendum to pull them out, or there has to be federal charges filed against them for their failure to uphold the duty that they swore an oath to when they took their oath, when they took their office.
We have not seen this level of state versus national government kind of feud.
Not
perhaps
since the 1860s.
The Civil War, the American Civil War. Let me go very concretely. You literally have this is from Adam Kinzinger, Republican from Illinois, my home state. Okay. He put this on social media. He said, I'm not sure why Gavin Newsom doesn't activate the rest of his Army Guard to prevent the president from it or force him to overrule it. Then fight on the Second Amendment guaranteeing a state a right to militia. How can a state have a militia? The president can't simply federalize it against the direct wishes of the governor. He's basically he's saying Governor Newsom should take back the militia and use it to stop the National Guard from carrying out their duties, or the Marines.
That's insurrection, by the way.
Yes, right. I mean,
well, and what you have here now are government officials that are officially signing on, without actually saying it, without explicitly declaring it. They are signing on with the protesters. They are signing on with the individuals who are conducting these violent operations against the American citizens. They're the ones that, by refusing to uphold the law, they are, by point of fact, upholding lawlessness.
Look at their comments. I mean, even Karen Bass, who's the mayor and has deep Marxist roots, out of Cuba. Okay. Yep. She is, you're probably better informed on that one, Michael, than myself, but her statements initially were like, okay, everyone's got First Amendment rights. Everyone don't commit acts of violence, but just, it's okay to protest. I mean, really at this point, should you be saying that? Because it's obvious. These people are out of control. They're not listening to you. You probably withheld your police from actually making an arrest. You're part of the problem. Steve Bannon had an excellent point when he was interviewing John Solomon yesterday on War Room. He said, great, Department of Justice, go ahead and, do your arrest of the people committing the acts of violence. But the real issue are the heads of local government, state government, who are stopping this or allowing this to happen. Those are the people we need to prosecute. Agreed, Michael?
Even though
I do agree. I do agree. These people, I mean, the government officials, the people who are on the streets, the organizations that are involved, there has to be a complete and thorough investigation. What's the flow of money? Who's in charge? How did this get organized? All of the violence that is being enacted is being done at the behest of somebody. This isn't just something that comes out of nowhere. These people didn't just wake up one morning and say, I want to go and smash police cars. No, they were instructed to do so. They were trained to do this. I remember researching a lot of the communist activities of the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. And what I found, Manning Johnson talked about how when he was working with one of the colored projects that he was a part of, he even said he was trained how to foment violence in a peaceful protest and then get out of the way so that the protest would go on without his presence being there. These are Marxist agitators. They know what they're doing. And it's time that the federal government deployed its power to take charge and say, you know what? These agitators that have invaded our country, that are starting all of these riots, are going to be completely weeded out, and we're going to find out exactly who they are, and we're going to put them in prison or send them packing.
So who's behind this? You probably have one of the best people able to really dig deep into this, Michael Hichborn, my co-host from the Lepanto Institute. This is what you do all day, every day, track receipts of different organizations and grants and funding and all that stuff. So we're going to go and explore and really understand the groups, what the groups stand for, what they're about, where they get their money from. So when we're able to say, yeah, this is a Marxist revolution, it's not just, you're not just making up out of thin air. Okay.
Right.
There are facts behind this. And those are the groups that we need to target or ask the Department of Justice to, when I say target, I mean, ask the Department of Justice to do their job and prosecute them. So who are they? I'm going to start off with an article. This is from Just the News. An advocacy group at the center of organizing efforts of the anti-ICE protest in Los Angeles has long raised money through Act Blue.
Yep.
Act Blue is, you know, when you people who are famous or involved in nonprofits, or if you've ever given money to a nonprofit before, a church or whatever, they'll use a money operating platform. It could be Anodot, it could be DonorBox. Okay. Well, the one that the Democrat Party uses, okay, and specifically the most far left members of the Democrat Party, they use a thing called, or a company called Act Blue. Okay, sounds wonderful, but
which by the way has been investigated for shuffling money around, for illicitly utilizing funds for other operations. Yes.
Yeah, it's actually under investigation right now by the U.S. Department of Justice. Okay, so all right, so think Act Blue. Okay, you got Act Blue. It's under investigation. Cool, great, awesome. How are they tied into these protests? According to the social media page, okay, they basically, okay, go to the social media page of the Coalition for Humane, okay, according to the social media pages of the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights of Los Angeles, otherwise known as Chura, so we'll hereby refer to them as Chura, Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights of Los Angeles, formed in 1986. Yep. To quote unquote advance the human and civil rights of immigrants and refugees, right? They use Act Blue. Okay. So Act Blue is under investigation. Why? Because two reasons. They probably most likely have come up with a bunch of phony donations to their to different candidates. And why that's important, because you think about when someone's running to get onto a ballot, they have to have a certain number of unique donors. Okay. Right. So if you have someone who's able to make up these different names, say 20,000 people gave me $1. Okay. That's great, because then one crazy George Soros like person can just write a check for $20,000, get this candidate on the ballot and subvert the system. Also, Act Blue is under investigation for receiving foreign contributions and then directing them to a candidate against federal law. Okay. Act Blue is giving money to Chura, which is behind these ICE riots. Michael, talk to us about Chura. You know everything about it that there is to know.
So Chura, as you pointed out, started off in 1986. Its big push was to agitate immigrants and to try and get them find out a way to get illegal immigrants a right hearing and quote unquote humane treatment in the United States. But they've been political agitators for a very, very long time. Why are we talking about them here on this program is not just because of the clear and present danger that they pose to the people of Los Angeles as they're fomenting a lot of these riots, but I want to point out, if you go to the Los Angeles Life, Peace, and Justice website, and we're going to put this up here on the screen. I want to show this to you. The Archdiocese of Los Angeles, and right here at the top, you see Office of Justice, Peace, Life, Justice, and Peace, Archdiocese of Los Angeles. If you scroll down, what you're going to see is that they have recommended organizations all the way down. Keep going. And it is right there. So key immigrant support organizations, and right there on the Archdiocese of Los Angeles website, Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, Chura.
You got to be kidding me. Whoa, I'm seeing this the first time. Michael did not tell me this in advance.
That's right.
One of the nonprofits that the Archdiocese of Los Angeles,
yes,
has the City of the Angels recommends is to work with Chura, right?
That's correct.
Which is the far left Marxist organization that is funding these riots, correct?
That is correct.
I'm stealing your thunder, but please continue, Michael.
Okay. The next thing I'm going to show you is something from 2017. This is a letter that about the World Meeting of Popular Movements.
Can I ask a question going back to that, though?
Yeah,
all right. So just to be fair, they recommend that group. Is it clear why they recommend Chura by the Archdiocese?
They've been working with them for decades.
Huh.
They've been working with them for decades.
Oh my God.
It's going to become clear here in a moment when I go into a couple of other things. So the World Meeting of Popular Movements here, if we can blow the picture up just a little bit, this is from February of 2017. Down here at the bottom of the page, you see Catholic Campaign for Human Development. Now, the Catholic Campaign for Human Development is an agency of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. They've been funding far left community organizing groups for a very, very long time, since 1970. You see also the Papal Keys, and on the left, you see PICO National Network. PICO is one of the agencies that is very much funded by the USCCB. They've got a huge network of organizations. They're called Faith in Action now. And the reason for the Papal Keys is because the World Meeting of Popular Movements was being coordinated by the Vatican. All right. Now, if we go down a little bit on this letter, what you're going to see on this next page is that Chura is one of the advising organizations. There it is. So whoops, we lost it. There we go. Right there. Advisory committee. And down at the bottom, you see Angela Salas, Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights of Los Angeles, Chura. So Chura is very involved with the CCHD, part of this World Meeting of Popular Movements. By the way, the World Meeting of Popular Movements, I did a video on this in 2019, was spotlighting active communist organizations. And I don't mean that hyperbolically. I mean, these were organizations that were themselves promoting Karl Marx and hammer and sickle ideologies. Chura, being on the advisory committee of this, is simply acknowledging that they're part of that Marxist agenda. The next thing I want to show you, and this is the last thing that I've got here on Chura, because there's so much, but this kind of emphasizes the point. There's an organization called CLINIC, C-L-I-N-I-C. It's the Catholic Legal Immigration and Nationalization. I can't remember what it all stands for. Catholic Legal Immigration Network Incorporated. That's what it is. CLINIC has a very solid relationship with the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. In fact, the USCCB takes up an annual collection directly for CLINIC. This is from their 2003 annual report. And the reason I went all the way back here is to show just how far back this relationship with Chura really goes. This next page I'm going to show you, this is page 5. Right here, you have the National Immigration and Employment, Empowerment Project, and it's a list of grantees. The project here Clinic and the Catholic Campaign for Human Development established the National Immigrant Empowerment Project, and they provided grants directly to the listed organizations. And Chura is right there, number 6 from the top. So the CCHD and Clinic provided a grant to Chura in 2003, on top of the fact that you have Chura being a part of the World Meeting of Popular Movements in 2017, on top of the fact that Chura is even right now mentioned by the Archdiocese of Los Angeles on their Life, Justice, Peace website.
Michael, I'm finding this on the website that Chura's first director was Father Luis Olivares.
Yep.
Pastor of Our Lady Queen of Angels Church. So the first director was a Catholic priest.
Yes. And that's actually pretty common for a lot of these organizations. PICO was founded by a couple of Catholic priests, Jesuits. DART, I believe, was also founded at least in conjunction with some Catholic priests. So there are I mean, you have to look at even just the Catholic Campaign for Human Development itself was founded by a man named Monsignor Jack Egan. He convinced the Archdiocese of Chicago to finance Saul Alinsky's community organizing groups in the 1960s through a collection in the area. And then Cardinal Bernard, at the time, Father Joseph Bernardin, when he was the Secretary General or the Executive Secretary or whatever it is of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, he took that Chicago model of financing Saul Alinsky's community organizing groups and took it national. So these agencies, the reason that we have all of these community organizing groups, and
is it fair to say, just keep on that point of Saul Alinsky, because Saul Alinsky is a big one, who wrote Rules for Radicals, okay? Yep. Hard left, Marxist, communist. Hillary Clinton did her doctoral thesis on Saul Alinsky, by the way.
Barack Obama worked for Saul Alinsky's community organizing groups in the 1980s.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Would it be fair to say that Saul Alinsky had a working relationship with Monsignor Jack Egan?
Yes, he did.
They
were friends.
Campaign for Human Development, correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Which is a collection that's conducted in even the most conservative parishes in this country every single year. Okay,
that's right.
Please continue about this.
So this is just Chura. I mean, we were talking about a lot of the different agencies that are involved in these riots upcoming. We have the June 14th No Kings protest. I don't know what to call it. Movement. No Kings movement. And I didn't have any slides or anything like that for this particular thing, but I do have a couple of notes that I want to point out.
Maybe people don't know why it's No Kings. Is kind of like background. No Kings refers to, like, they don't want President Trump being a king, a dictator, mm-hmm. Which, by the way, he's just fulfilling the laws of the land. In fact, a federal court just ruled in favor of President Trump using the National Guard yesterday against the motion that Governor Newsom, mm-hmm. filed against Trump to stop him. The court said, sorry, Trump's doing his job. Like, back off, Mr. Governor, right? So he's not a dictator. He's doing his job. He was elected for this. Trump is, so these protests, No Kings protests, which have organically been spread up, are also to counter the June 4th 250th anniversary celebration of the United States Army, which will take place in Washington, D.C. So who are these guys, Michael?
So, there are a whole bunch of these groups. If you look at their the No Kings movement page where they talk about their members or their sponsors, there's a whole list of them, and there are too many to discuss. But as I was looking through the list, there were a number that caught my attention because I'm familiar with these groups. Faithful America is one that's on that list. They were originally founded as a project of the National Council of Churches in 2004, and then later became a project of an organization called Faith in Public Life. Faith in Public Life, I had seen working very closely with the Catholic Campaign for Human Development and USCCB in the early to mid 2000s. John Carr was very active with them. Ralph McLeod, who was the director of the CCHD, he was also very active with Faith in Public Life. So I have seen a lot of collaboration between them. In fact, 14 years ago, Faith in Public Life published a very long report trying to counter my investigations into the Catholic Campaign for Human Development. And I can tell you exactly why that happened, but it's a long story. What's interesting is that they list as their members Catholic, Protestant, Evangelical, and more. And they say that they're sick of sitting quietly while Jesus's message of good news is hijacked by the religious right to serve a hateful political agenda. I mean, the rhetoric is just dripping here. But what you have to understand about them is that in addition to being Marxist agitators, they also say this. They say, we're fighting for social, economic, and racial justice, standing with the Black Lives Matter movement, and upholding the gospel's values of love, equality, and dignity. Together, we're helping to make a difference for immigrants, refugees, the climate, the LGBT community, and more. I mean, these people are radical leftists. They're pushing a hard left, immoral line of ideology, and they've been working with the Catholic Campaign for Human Development for quite a long time. The next organization, yeah, go ahead.
No,
Yep.
What I think we need to do, and this is maybe just an action point from this, we need to basically do like a memo, very clear, even a graph of how these different organizations are funding these riots, specifically coming from our niche, which is how Catholics are involved in the political arena, the good things and the bad things, right? How the Catholic Church itself has become mixed up in this. I think you're doing an absolutely fantastic job kind of showing some of these receipts in these groups, but we need to put that like on a chart, very clear, so that we can even present it to perhaps all the way up to the Department of Homeland Security, so they can use that and do this investigation. But go ahead. What's that last group that you want to mention?
Well, I've got two other groups here. Or I'm sorry, three other groups. The next one is Catholics Vote Common Good, which is a nonprofit organization that seeks to create common ground at the intersection of faith and politics for Catholics by finding areas of agreement based on common ideals, etc. In other words, what they're saying is, well, we want to just talk about the common good and what's good for everybody. And then what they do is they sneak in certain ideologies like LGBT and maybe reproductive justice. That all kind of comes in and in under the guise of this socialistic approach to, well, we have to democratize our church and we have to say that we're just one community and we want to do what's good for everybody. Nonsense. What they want to do is draw down the people who are conservative and prop up the ones who are on the left. That's their whole aim. The third group here is Network Lobby, which you are probably familiar with. The Nuns on the Bus ring a bell?
Absolutely.
So Network Lobby is the Nuns on the Bus organization founded by the pro-abortion Sister Simone Campbell. She was also very active with Sister Carol Keehan in the early 2000s to help get Obamacare passed. So they were the ones who, I think Sister Simone Campbell was one of the nuns that got a pen, one of Obama's signing pens. And the last organization I want to highlight is also listed on the No Kings Movement website, is People's Action Institute. Now, that one leapt off the page to me because I have been investigating Catholic Campaign for Human Development for quite some time. And a number of the members of the People's Action Institute have received funding from the Catholic Campaign for Human Development. That includes the Workers' Dignity Project in Austin, Texas, Northwest Bronx Community and Clergy Coalition in New York, People United for Sustainable Housing in Buffalo, New York, also called Push Buffalo, Illinois People's Action in Chicago, the Organizing Neighborhoods for Equality, and People Organized for Westside Renewal. All of those organizations have received funding from the Catholic Campaign for Human Development and are part of the People's Action Network. Or the people, what did I call it? People's Action Institute. If you look at all of these locations here on the map, they don't say who the organizing entity is, but I can almost guarantee you that the organizing entity is either a CCHD funded organization or somebody who is connected to a CCHD funded organization. The incestuous relationships that you see among these networks is so stark. They work for each other. They sit on each other's boards. They share funding with each other. But all of this is being coordinated from the top, and all of the local grantees, the local community organizing groups, are taking their marching orders from a higher entity.
Hichborn just dropped the bombshell. I'm going to repeat basically what he says and break that down. Okay, so you're looking at a map of, this is right on the No Kings website, okay, which is advocating for nationwide, call it what it is, riots on June 14th, Saturday. There you go. On June 14th, America, we don't do kings. America, we don't do communism, pal.
No, we don't.
Okay?
Yeah.
So look, and they have all those different rallies. I think you can actually click on some of those rally sites, get the information. They probably send you a free riot shield in the mail, for all I know, right? And masks, etc. Okay, so what Michael just said is he suspects, based on just some of the preliminary investigation that he's been doing, and he does all the time. This is like your job, 24/7 with Lepanto. Is that a lot of those groups that are basically posted on the No Kings site as being affiliated with the Nuns on the Bus. What was the other one you said? Like America. List them off really fast.
So we have Faithful America. We've got Catholics Vote Common Good, Network Lobby, People's Action Institute.
Dude, like hold on. Even the Catholics Vote Common Good, like that's one of the ones.
Yeah, they are one of the ones that are sponsoring this.
I'm so glad we're in the business these days of making sure groups use the word Catholic in the right way, right? I'm actually maybe that's canonically okay according to 212. Can't allow to use it as our own name is allowed under canon law. But okay, so you got a specifically Catholic group, which is part of this, okay? And the bombshell that you dropped is that most likely a lot of these groups or these rallies have funding in some way, shape, or form from the Capital Campaign of Human Development, which is one of the authorized. That means you have to do it. That means every Catholic priest, parish priest, is at least told to by their bishop to put the envelopes in the pews. What's the Sunday they early do? It's November, right? Or when's
it's always the third weekend in November. Yeah.
Third weekend in November. Okay. So if you by mistake gave money, which I think less and less people make that mistake because the word's getting out pretty darn good these days. If you gave money on the third week of November, guess what? You may be funding the No Kings riots across America this weekend. John, you're making this up. You're being exaggerated. Am I really? Come on, like debate. Let's go. Put it in the comments. I don't think so. Okay. This is where these groups get this money. And the CCHD, again, is one of like the 17 national collections of the USCCB demands that every parish have once a year, including Peter's Pence. We know what happened with Peter's Pence is $500,000 was given by Pope Francis to the southern border invasion, migrants coming across, okay, which happens, that'll be coming up actually shortly, June 29th, right? Okay, so that was started by Monsignor Jack Egan, as Michael told us, who was very close friends with Saul Alinsky, the American Marxist par excellence. You know, so this is bad news. Okay, very bad. Continue, Mike. I don't know if I cut you off there, but I had to stop you and say that.
Sure. No, it's not a problem. I just kind of want to point out that this isn't new for the Catholic Campaign for Human Development. I have been tracking their activities for nearly 20 years now. And what I have found consistently, and I've done several articles on this, you can go to the Lepanto Institute website and look them up, but I've done several articles showing CCHD grantees participating in these riots from 2016, when Black Lives Matter was doing a bunch of the stuff, you know, don't shoot, can't breathe, all that nonsense. It was actually rhetoric that came from certain CCHD grantees that led to the shooting of several police officers, execution style. I have pointed out consistently how we've had CCHD grantees marching for defund the police riots. We've seen CCHD grantees participating in Black Lives Matter riots. So all of this stuff coming from the Catholic Campaign for Human Development to promote this Marxist revolution throughout this country. And remember, going back to the World Meeting of Popular Movements, if you look at the list of organizations that were participating in that, you would be shocked at the number of outright, openly communist organizations that were paraded by the Vatican. Thank God Pope Francis is no longer in charge. But that's why that was happening. So now we've got a mess to clean up. We've got a Catholic Church that's been infiltrated by communists. They are pushing communist revolution through their social justice organizations. And this social justice nonsense has just got to stop. We've got to shift over to actual justice, which starts with the law. From the law, you proceed to individual justice, and you say, okay, is somebody being unjustly oppressed? Is somebody being unjustly suppressed in some way, shape, or form? In investigating that, you can determine on an individual basis what the problem is. But this whole movement, this idea that we need to be marching through the streets and throwing rocks at police cars, is nothing short of revolution. And the Catholic Church cannot participate in that.
She can participate, but she also cannot remain on the sidelines. She needs to stand, as she has since 1848, when it released the first encyclical condemning communism, 1846
Right.
rather, 2 years before the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx. Speak out and condemn this. Okay, that's what we need from Mother Church. You know, it's, if you ever were wondering, one of the reasons that Catholics for Catholics exists is, and groups like Lepanto as well, is to speak up and say these things, which you're not going to always hear. You just aren't from Catholic leaders. And there's a reason for that. You may, and we go in deep, and I'm going to put a plug in for, it's a serious plug for this book, Charity for Sale. Okay. We published this about 2 months ago by Dr. Christopher Mannion. Okay. Which outlines in a remarkable way, basically the history of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops and how it would be gradually became over time since the First World War, slowly but surely, almost completely dependent upon the federal government to exercise its charity, thereby almost nullifying the philosophical definition of what charity is, right? And they became, because of that, receiving government grants by the millions every single year. They became beholden to the different administrations and the liberal agendas. We saw that so clearly in how Catholic charities, again, not all Catholic charities people are bad, but some group people in Catholic charities facilitated the southern border invasion, which made this whole thing possible. So I really recommend getting this book, Charity for Sale. It kind of gives the background, the history. It actually calms you down. Yes, you get pissed off or angry about it, but more than anything, it kind of helps you, like, okay, this in the beginning, it wasn't so. In the beginning of our country, we didn't have such a this close, almost legal or connection with the government, which eventually strangleholded the voice of truth and allowed people like Monsignor Jack Egan, Saul Alinsky, Theodore McCarrick to wrap this up and create what we see this Saturday, in part, compliments to Catholics' money from the pews, in part, and our tax dollars, the No Kings riots across the country. Okay, so get that book. But yeah, any more comments just on the background of who these people are, Michael?
No, I mean, I covered basically what I had wanted to cover here. I would just simply say that organizations like the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, anything involved with social justice within the Catholic Church, has been completely tainted by Marxism, and we just have to call it out for what it is. And we have to ask our bishops to put an end to these things. Stop supporting the Marxists. We are not revolutionaries, and we're not supposed to be.
It's and most importantly, communism is a philosophy which denies the authority of God himself and puts government as the number one authority. Sorry. Okay. You know, let's shift over. Okay. So again, I do want to say, I think one of the actions that I'm going to take from this is to really kind of put this in a memo so people can see it clearly. Maybe it can be used on social media or to people up in positions of power to make a difference. Just showing that connection of our Catholic groups who are basically tied in with the funding and the organization of these riots to a degree. Okay. Let's go now. Now that you have that framework, right? We talked about what's going on, nationwide riots. People are crazy. They're burning, they're looting, they're hurting cops, hurting individual people. Great. We talked about who's behind this, what groups, how they're tied to the Catholic Church in some way. Okay. Now let's go to what the Catholic Church itself is saying on the official level, because I didn't want to talk about this in the first part until you have the context of what groups are basically tacitly being maybe defended or allowed to do what they're doing. Okay. So right to the heart of it, the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, the statement from Most Reverend Jose Gomez, okay, Archdiocese of Los Angeles. This was put out on June 6th. This is his statement. I'm going to read it. It's very, very quick. And let's comment about it. I'm troubled by today's immigration enforcement raids in LA, and I'm praying for our community. I pray tonight that everyone involved will exercise restraint and calm. Okay, great. That's amazing, Archbishop. Thank you. We definitely need that. Okay. I think it could be 50 times stronger, and I think saying it once on June 6th is not enough. He goes on. We all agree that we don't want undocumented immigrants who are known terrorists or violent criminals in our community. Do we all agree? Because are we supporting the action to remove them? He goes on. But there is no need for the government to carry out enforcement actions. Again, I don't like going at or whatever this would come off as critique of Archbishop Gomez. You know, he does a lot of good stuff. Okay. And I have a lot of friends who are close to him. And, you know, he personally was good to me too, as well, when I was a seminarian there. So I'm grateful for that. Okay. I want to just, but also I can't, you're the center of this, right? And I got to try to be respectful and also humble too, because you are office of the shepherd. And I want to respect your office as bishop. But I also got to speak up. Okay. For me and for my friends in LA who are in your flock who don't want to say this. They got too much fear to say this directly or don't have the platform. Okay. So I have to say this. So he says there is no need for the government to carry out enforcement actions in a way that provokes fear and anxiety among ordinary, hard-working immigrants and their families. Archbishop, well, exactly are we supposed to remove these people? Do we really think that the likes of the people who've been raping little girls or killing that nurse, Lake and Riley in Atlanta, or drunk drivers, or etc., or killed that former Marine in Texas, do we really think that they're going to just turn themselves into the local authority and say, okay, President Trump said I gotta be deported. Here I am.
Right.
So what are we supposed to do? I mean, Michael, how do you see that?
Well, I mean, there's no other way to see it, but it's not just a lapse in judgment. It's a lapse in rhetoric, because what he's saying here is, well, the government needs to stop doing what it's doing, but we want them to do what they're supposed to. What is ICE supposed to do? Knock on doors very nicely and have somebody in a non-threatening suit say, excuse me, are you a criminal? Because if you're a criminal, we need you to leave. Can you leave, please? That's not how it works. That's not how it's ever worked.
It's ridiculous.
Yes, it's absurd. If you have a criminal, a known criminal, you bust indoors, you take them, you drag them out in handcuffs, and you throw them in the back of a paddy wagon. That's how it's always operated when it comes to somebody who is either a known felon or a suspect of felony. That's how it works. So to say that this is all about going after and sparking fear against ordinary, hardworking immigrants and their families, the only one who's sparking fear amongst real immigrants who are here legally are people like, I'm sorry, but Archbishop Gomez, because his rhetoric is the one who's saying you should be fearful. It's the rhetoric of his social justice office who says we're setting up all sorts of legal help for you immigrants who are here legally to know what your rights are, because you're going to be under attack and under assault from Donald Trump, and we need to protect you. When you set things up like that, you're setting the government up for failure.
And I guess as I reflect on this too, like, you know, I try to pray, and we're always like, okay, what would Jesus do in this situation? Okay. That's really the ultimate question. What every Catholic needs to ask himself, like, how would he respond? I we all saw this from the moment that Biden stole the election, okay, in 2020, or took it, or whatever. Fine, you don't think he stole? Fine, okay, he was elected president. Okay, we knew as the borders were wide open, and there were thousands and thousands of we saw those images at the Darien Gap, etc. People coming across. All of us knew what a mess this was going to create. Of course, you're going to have, people that have been here. There are a lot of good working families here, and they maybe not speak English. It's not just Latinos. There's a lot of people from Africa, from all over the world, etc. And you see these ICE agents going everywhere. You hear stuff online, okay, and you listen to mainstream media, which, again, this was great. Candace Owens did a great show talking about how a lot of these people are just propped up by our own intelligence agencies, which makes perfect sense. These liberal outlets like Politico, okay? So we know, of course, they're going to be fearful, okay? And that's why I was so upset of what was going on. Half the reason I'm so upset, of course, human trafficking, the fentanyl, all that stuff was going on. But I knew the moment that Trump was given the keys that the American people gave him to rule this country, the mess that he was going to have. And that's why it's so sad what's going on. I mean, Mike, you saw this coming, right?
Oh, absolutely. I want to go back to what you said about keeping in mind how Jesus would handle a situation like this. And I want to remind everybody that that exact scenario was played out for us during the Passion. Our Lord stood on the Praetorian steps right next to a man named Barabbas. And Pilate turned to the people and he said, "Who would you have, Barabbas or Jesus, who is called King of the Jews?" And the people called for Barabbas. Who was Barabbas? Barabbas was not just a murderer, as many people seem to identify him. He was a revolutionist. The people want revolution. They don't want Christ. How does our Lord respond to revolution? Quietly. He spoke not a word. He didn't clamor for the crowd to say, "What are you doing? You're going with this revolutionist. Why would you do that?" He didn't say a thing. He kept his mouth shut. Now, that's not quietism. Doesn't mean you don't stand up for injustice. What it shows is that our Lord is not a revolutionist who's calling for a change, social change, whatever it is. Do you think he didn't see injustices in the streets as the Romans would arrest people? And why were the Jews even rising up? Because there were injustices on the part of the Romans. Did our Lord say a single thing about rising up against the Roman government or saying that we should organize? No, the Jews had him arrested because they were upset that he was not a political savior that they wanted. They wanted somebody who was going to lead them against the Romans. And he said, "No, render unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar." He's not a revolutionist. But all of this mollycoddling that's coming from the USCCB and the US bishops pushing for this idea that we have to have social justice by marching in the streets and parading around like animals, throwing rocks, and they say, "Oh, we don't want the violence part of it." Well, what's the point then?
Or the disregard for law. I mean, that's at the heart of it too. I mean, are we a country of laws or are we not? Okay.
Right.
There is a reason that people are coming to the United States. Okay. The reality of the situation in Mexico specifically, they're an incredible country in so many ways. I got so many Mexican friends, but there is a lot of chaos right now. Okay.
Yep.
They do not have a firm grip on their country and their own, whatever, Department of Justice. Okay. The cartels run that country. Everybody knows it. Okay. Talk to Eduardo Verasky about it.
I would like to point out that Mexico had a thriving economy. It had a very powerful government until the revolutions that brought it down. Who fomented those revolutions? They were Freemasons.
That's right.
Who aided the Freemasons in those revolutions? The United States government. Because the United States government at the time was also Masonic. The president and some of the cabinet members were also Freemasons. And what did they think? We're going to create some sort of a cohabitating relationship with Mexico by having a Masonic United States government, by having a Masonic Mexican government. The revolutions belong to the Freemasons. They did this. And the problems that we're facing now come directly from those revolutions that were fomented by the Freemasons. Why do we have this problem? Because they put it there.
You're talking about the Calles laws, 1910, around there in Mexico, which later resulted in the Cristero War.
Well, that's part of it, but I'm actually talking about the revolutions that took place in Mexico in the 1800s, leading up to Santa Anna and some of those individuals. Santa Anna, by the way, was a Freemason. So you have a lot of these problems. Santa Anna, he was a Freemason. He was going into Texas, which was...
we should do a talk. We should do a show just on the Mexican-American War. That was just a messy little endeavor.
Yes,
there.
It was.
It was.
Yes, it was.
Probably the furthest thing from a just war, I would say, maybe perhaps on our
American
side,
soil. Yeah.
Although the Mexican War, it's actually, I'm going to brief anecdote, because you have a lot of these protesters in LA who are saying, look, this is Mexico. This is our country. We have a right to this. We've been here a long time. This is our country. Historically, okay, actually it was belonged to Spain for many more years, okay, and then there was like a 20-year period where Mexico was in control of California, and then yes, we took control of it in 1846, 48,
right.
Okay?
It was called Mexicali.
Mexicali. The point is, you guys had it for 20 years, okay, and then we took it back, right? So, but anyway, that's a separate discussion. So, okay, this going back to the statement from Archbishop Gomez, okay, it goes on. He urges Congress I urge Congress to get serious about fixing our broken immigration system that leads so many to seek to cross our borders illegally. Other nations have a coherent immigration policy that respects the natural rights of people to immigrate in search of a better life and also ensures control of their borders. America should too. It's been almost 40 years since the last reform of our immigration laws. That's too long, and it's time to do something about that. Okay, it sounds wonderful, but can I just make a point here? Okay. Yes, there's a broken immigration system in this country. Yes, I have friends who are waiting for years to get their papers. Okay, agreed. Archbishop, though, and archdiocese and other bishops of the country, why are we just really now emphasizing this? Where were you the last 4 years talking about the broken southern border when you all were receiving millions of dollars to facilitate this invasion? $3,200 roughly per head that came in. Illegal immigrants comes to the border guards. They're shoveled over to a nonprofit who receives them. They're paid $3,200 a person. Yes, probably most likely, we haven't proven it yet, but it makes logical sense that these traffickers, they come to Catholic Charities. They're given these kids, they're adopted, we never hear from them again, okay? So they're part of this, whether knowingly or not, they're part of that whole sex traffic operation, okay? So, bishops, it's great that you're talking about the disaster of immigration system, but specifically Archbishop Gomez, you were president of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops.
Yep.
Under Biden's watch, 3 days after he was elected, 3 days when the votes were still being counted, and he wasn't even certified December 6th, or also in Congress on January 6th of 2021. And yet you have that statement 72 hours after the election, congratulating President Biden. Fine. Okay, great. Wonderful. You guys released that statement. That was pretty quick. And you said virtually nothing all those years.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's hard for me to take seriously this concern about the broken immigration system now, right, Michael?
Well, I actually dispute what he said too. I put the statement back up on the screen. I want to read it once again. It says, again, I urge Congress to get serious about fixing our broken immigration system that leads too many to seek to cross our borders illegally. I dispute that it's the broken immigration system that is causing people to cross the borders illegally. There is an active propaganda campaign going on south of the border, encouraging people to come into this country illegally, regardless of what the immigration system does. Furthermore, we have to question, why are they coming here? Why are they actually seeking to come into the United States? And I would posit that it has a lot to do with the free goodies. When it comes to the welfare campaign or the welfare programs that are available to illegal immigrants, when it comes to the free healthcare system that's available to them when they come into this country. They're coming here because they're getting stuff for free. If we want to fix the problem and have people to stop seeking to cross the border illegally, stop giving out free stuff. It's a pretty simple process.
Free healthcare, free in-state tuition, as we'll see in the case in Texas.
Yep.
Driver's license, ability to vote. Like, what's the point of becoming
Free housing?
Yeah, I'm reading one of the comments from Petra Camarillo. He thanks you and I, Michael, for not hating on Mexicans. I love the Mexican culture. I'm going to give a short message in Spanish for those Hispanics listening. Doy gracias a Dios, en serio, por la cultura mexicana. Me ha dado mucho mi formación. He pasado casi 10 años viviendo entre mexicanos y gente de Latinoamérica, y me ha enseñado mucho, y les doy gracias. For real, I want to thank them, because we're actually speaking up on behalf of all these the legal migrants who are in this country and are following the rules. They're some of the best people in this world. Okay, they work so hard in this country. We know that. Dodger Stadium rally was 2000, when we protested the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. The majority of those were Hispanic males, good men. Yep. They are the first to know, hey, we need order in our communities. We can't have this fentanyl crisis. Okay, we're speaking up for you guys.
Yeah.
Michael, you had a comment?
I wish I had subtitles for what you said.
I told everyone you're the best guy in the world. So just leave it at that, man. But no, it's anyway. I think should we go to also man, this is flowing by this time. I mean, should we briefly I think we should go to the Catholic bishops Texas story, briefly talking about that. Okay. They expressed profound disappointment. This is from CNA over the Texas Dream Act reversal. Okay, it's an article. Federal judge, this is from June 9th, has overturned the longstanding Texas Dream Act in a move the state's Catholic bishops say undermines just immigration reform efforts. After the U.S. Department of Justice sued the state of Texas over the matter last week, District Judge Reed O'Connor blocked the law, which has enabled some citizens living illegally in Texas to qualify for in-state tuition at the state's public universities and colleges. It was enacted in 2001. The law made in-state tuition available for non-citizen students who graduated from a local high school and had lived in Texas for at least 3 years prior to graduation. Okay, so, I mean, you basically get it, okay? So most public colleges across the U.S. offer a more affordable in-state tuition for students who've lived in that state for a certain length of time as their families. The logic is because they've paid tax dollars in the state over the years, okay? So they should get it. They deserve it. Meanwhile, students coming from out of state pay higher tuition rates to attend the same schools, okay?
It's so pretty. It's similar all across the country. You see the same thing all over the place.
So, the courts said, in effect, that, look, if you're not a U.S. citizen, you don't qualify for in-state tuition. Right? You need to pay more. Texas Catholic Bishops Conference has said that's a horrible rule. They're sorry. They feel really bad about it, they say. They said, quote, propels our society further away from just and reasonable immigration reform that would foster human flourishing based in the tranquility of order and human dignity.
I want to stop right there if I can, because what upsets me is that the bishops are constantly talking about the ones who are denied the goods. It's unjust that they didn't get this. It's unjust that they didn't get that. But they never focus on the ones from whom the goods come. It's unjust that somebody should be taking my stuff. It's unjust that somebody should be taking something from me and giving it to somebody else. That's called theft. It's theft. So, and don't tell me that it's charity, because charity is person to person. Don't tell me it's charitable for me to come up and say, well, we're going to take your money from this tax and that tax. And by the way, I know you're hungry and you've got your own kids to send to college. Now, that doesn't matter to us. We want to make sure that this person over here who's never paid anything into anything gets their college tuition reduced so that they can go to college too. That's theft. And you're reducing my ability to feed and house and clothe and educate my family. That's unjust, Your Excellencies.
Donald Trump won in 2016 in this past election because he uplifted and remembered the forgotten American citizen. They came out in droves, people who never voted for because there was somebody who actually cared about them, and it never happened. And Michael, what you're saying is it's easy to talk about these poor people. I agree. Some of them are, again, they're good people.
Yeah.
They may be in a dire financial state, not denying that. And that's why it's just a mess in the first place. But, it's the people that we're not talking about who came here, who've been here for years, right? Who are living paycheck to paycheck. It looks like 70% of Americans are, okay? And we're advocating for these people, right? It's not fair. So,
no, it's unjust. I wouldn't even use the word fair. It's unjust.
It's unjust.
It's theft.
It's theft. That's it. Yeah. Okay. So that, it's the situation's hot. I gotta admit, I'm always open to continue to balance my view on this whole thing about what do we do with the millions who are here in this country and how do we go about this? This is not an easy thing to do. Okay. I saw this meme or this picture the Department of Homeland Security posted. Let's throw it up there. The Uncle Sam picture. Okay. You can kind of read it there. It says, help your country locate and arrest illegal aliens. To report criminal activity, call 866, whatever. Okay, that one got me a little bit.
Yeah, that's too far.
That's too far, man.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why it's such a mess.
Mm-hmm.
That right there is going to create even more disunity in this country. Look, I don't agree with that meme. I don't think we should be like, it's reporting.
We're not a police state. I'm sorry.
We're not a police state. They did that during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Walt of Minnesota had an app where you could report on your neighbor. You snitch the snitch app. He was like, I don't know. He was walking outside with the mask, whatever. Right.
Yeah,
so
see something, say something. Yeah.
It's a serious situation where I think we constantly have to, I'll say this for myself too. We have to pray. And we have to make sure that we're always operating not from a place of hatred for anybody.
Right.
But from a place of love and justice. And it's not easy to do. And I think that's why it's so important that Catholics with good formation are speaking up and trying to figure out how to go about this.
Right.
But yeah, that's, and we also should be wary of, guess what? Not everyone in government, even in the Trump administration, is a good actor, right? So it'd be very easy for holdovers to jump on a situation like this, where we create this thing where we're just turning in fellow Americans everywhere. And it's just a mess. So anyway, it's lots to pray for. Let's just go to that last point. Saw this tweet. This is a whole show in itself. My goodness. We're already over an hour, but this is started from Matt Walsh. Okay. The Walshes are good friends of Catholics for Catholics, and retweeted by another friend, Charlie Kirk. Okay. So Matt posted on Sunday, I'm going to get your comments, Michael. Ban all third world immigration, legal or illegal. There should be a moratorium on all immigration from the third world. We've reached our capacity. We cannot be the world's soup kitchen anymore. Charlie retweets it. Gets like 5 million views on X. It's time to ban third world immigration, legal or illegal. We've reached our limit, and we have a huge cultural, educational, housing, financial, and essential services problem to fix now because of it. That's really true. We need a net zero immigration moratorium with a ban on all third worlders. What do you say?
Jack Pozo also posted a similar tweet. I would say this. I think that the rhetoric is too strong. I think that it's too much to say we have to ban all third world immigration, don't allow them to come in, just close the border. It's too much, because what you're doing is you're saying it's actually it feeds to the anti-immigrant rhetoric, and you're not going to win any hearts, minds, or souls by going about it this way. What I do agree with, though, is that we have such an influx of people coming into this country that it's put a massive strain on our infrastructure. And because of that, I think it is essential for us to at least slow the stream, because we have to catch up with the number of people that are here. At the same time that Donald Trump is trying to remove the individuals who are here illegally, who are also criminals and terrorists and that kind of thing. But if we're going to actually get anything done, we have to avoid rhetoric like this that goes so far to the extreme that these anti-ICE riots they will turn into open revolutionaries, and they will start committing acts of murder and violence and everything else. It's just, that's the nature of the beast. So I would say avoid the rhetoric, but there does have to be some measure that says we've got to curtail or slow down the number of people coming in, because now throwing it on, we're not the world soup kitchen. Again, it's polemical. It's a rhetorical statement. What he's really trying to say is the infrastructure of the United States is being severely strained, and people who are working to try and feed their families, to house their families, to put their families through college, they're the ones who are struggling because of the strain. And we've got to fix that before we can help anybody else.
By the way, deportation efforts alone will also help with the financial strain.
Yep.
Because we are, as Charlie put, the cultural, educational, housing, financial, essential services problem, it's all put on the taxpayer, right? Your paycheck is taken, some of that goes to some of these people that are, here, just some of those protesters probably, right? But I also think, okay, yeah, the numbers thing is important, the finances, the money, okay, that's okay. You got to be prudent how you let the certain amounts of people in. Mm-hmm. Okay, we are, by the way, let's remember, we are the most welcoming country in the world to this day. Still, we let in more people, as Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, said very clearly in Congress, like, look, we welcome more people than anybody else in the world. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. Okay, but I think it's deeper, and this is something that Cardinal Ratzinger, Pope Benedict was very strong on and very articulate about, saying that you just can't have anybody who's anybody come into your country, even if you have the numbers, so to speak, or the space or the finances. They must agree to your fundamental philosophical tenets of what you agree as a nation. What are you talking about, John? Give me an example. The religion of, if you call it religion, we can debate that about whether it's a religion. Just call it religion for now, of Islam. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Their ideas, at least macro Islam, has so many ideas which are against Western civilization. Okay.
Right.
That was one of the reasons why I believe Benedict actually said Turkey should not become part of the EU. They don't share the same philosophical tenets. And you can say whatever you want, but what's going on in Europe right now is just blinking red flashing lights. Look what happened, what's going on in Ireland right now, yesterday, today. That migrant raped a 9-year-old girl at a supermarket, killed her, I think, too. Yep. They're literally rioting in the streets now. Like, the Irish, the citizens are fed up. They've lost their country. They've lost England. Okay. So that topic about who we let in, because we could talk about it as a separate show even, Michael, because I think that's important. Just how Islam views Western civilization, specifically America, and can they really integrate at macro level, with what we stand for as a nation?
Yeah. No, I think that the problem is that the Muslims.
Yes, there are many good Muslims or Americans. I'm not denying that's not the point. I'm just saying a macro level philosophy is that.
Islam
Sharia
is
law.
diametrically opposed to Christianity.
That's right.
It just is.
And
Okay.
America is such a Christian nation in its
Yes.
a lot of its core tenets. It's
Yes.
it's obvious. We're talking at a philosophical level.
Right.
Okay. It's going to clash.
It's not just going to clash. The tenets of Islam are they're conquesting. Okay. Islam mandates the spread of Islam through conquest. That's how it operates. That's how it's operated since Muhammad. The way that they take over, the way that they force conversions, they take over a territory, and it's all active violence. So when we look at the way Islam is coming into this country, just look at Dearborn, Michigan. You ever gone through Dearborn, Michigan? You can hear call to prayer echoing through the entire county because they have so many minarets now with loudspeakers that belong to the Muslims. They have taken that territory. And one of the other tenets of Islam is that once they take a territory, it belongs to Islam. It is no longer Christian territory. And so anything within the territory that they claim for themselves has to pay tribute to the Muslims. So any Catholic churches, any Christian churches, they now are tributaries to Islam in that territory. And ultimately, you cannot have Catholics and Christians operating under the same set of laws and territories that the Muslims do. This is why Queen Elizabeth actually had the Muslims kicked out of Spain, because she recognized very rightly that they could not properly coexist. So I think that when it comes to Islam, we have to recognize that it is a conquesting ideology. And by that very nature, we can't have them in this country, not by and large in large communities, not at all.
Which denies certain fundamental natural rights. It's a religion. The equality, true equality, that all men are created equal. That Islam doesn't see that way. With what they've done to women, right? Yep. In so many, in many ways, right? So it's serious, and I think this conversation needs to be brought forward. You may be listening like, all right, come on, that's just all philosophical. Just come on, whatever. They can integrate a lot of good Muslims. I know there are in this country. I know, okay, who still serve in our military. Okay, I get it. How about the fact that since I think it's 2020, May of 2020, there have been over 500 attacks on Catholic churches, acts of vandalism in the United States alone. Mm-hmm. Okay. Who's behind those attacks?
Yep.
I think only 30%, I read the stat, 30% of those 500 attacks were actually investigated by the Biden DOJ. All right. Yep. And I'm not really, I could probably deeper dive into the studies, but if anyone's been arrested or who it is, there's somebody. And I don't know about you, Michael, but 500 attacks, and you also see this happening in Canada, Europe.
Yep.
That smacks of coordination. Okay. That does not smack like a bunch of just drunk guys on a Friday night doing something. Okay.
That's right.
Final word, Michael.
Well,
give us the word.
What is the word? The word is that we're in the soup.
We're in the soup. We're in the soup. What's going on in the country. I'm energized. Okay. As spite as it's cause for concern. You got riots across the country. I don't think they're going to be crazy out of control. Okay. But I think it's pushing the American citizenry to really wake up and understand who we are. And do we want to keep this republic? It's a republic if you can keep it. Okay.
Yep.
And the founding fathers, the last thing I'll say, knew that the basis of a true republic was a strong moral citizenry, i.e. religion. Okay. As a Catholic, that is the one true faith. You want to make a difference. You want to make a change. Go to adoration, go to confession. Okay. Get in the state of grace. As Officer Romero, friend of the program, C4C, always says, get in the state of grace. That's our lifeline. Saints change the world, not political operatives. You can be a saint and a political operative like King Louis, Saint whatever, right? But saints change the world. Don't forget that. We will see you next week. Same time, Catholic champion, God bless and fight on.